all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
And keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. So welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. Someone came up to me earlier and they said, "Can you do me a favor?" And I said, "Of course." Actually, no, I looked at him and said, "What do you want?" That's the truth, actually. And this person said, when you do the transfer of merit, and I'll fill what that is in a minute for those who don't know, but they said when you do the transfer of merit at the end, can you send merit? And then the person started to describe that there was a fire, the fires today, and the firefighters and whatnot. And I said, everything is okay. And they said, yes. And they said, can you transfer merit to them? I said, well, they turned out okay, right? And the person said, yes. I said, well, if they turned out okay, they don't need the merit right now. The merit is more for people at the end when we do a transfer of merit. We transfer merit to maybe those who are sick, maybe those who are ill, those who are really struggling, right? That's the idea of transferring merit to people, is that at the end of our kind of formal practice here, we join palms and say, may any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who might need it. So that was why my question was, are they okay? And they said, yes. And I said, well, then what you're really asking for is, can we send appreciation to them, gratitude to them? And so the answer to that is absolutely, of course. And so I figured as I was just doing my offering right now that I would start with that, to just recognize that, every day in our lives, whether it's people we know, family, friends, loved ones, whether it's strangers, whether it's, people going to put out the fires, right? First responders, no matter who it is, there are always people in our lives that we can send gratitude and appreciation to. And in fact, very often, when we find ourselves in places that are maybe uncomfortable, we find ourselves a little bit sad, a little bit down, a little bit depressed, kind of a struggle, that if we can shift our mindset to actually find gratitude and appreciation for people, it helps take us out of that kind of mental space that might not be so comfortable. Because often when we sit around and think, how many people think all day long and then feel really good about it, right? It doesn't usually work that way. We spend 6 hours thinking, and then we're like, well, it's almost 7 o'clock. I might as well go to meditation so I can get that out of the way, right? But if our thinking was actually about people or places or things that we can express our gratitude and appreciation for, it changes how we feel. So, before we go into meditation, if your mind's going to wander, maybe let it wander to, the people or places or things that you appreciate. As you go through the rest of your night here tonight, when we wrap up and you head out there and you have a few hours before you kind of wrap up and go to sleep or whatever you do, think about even just tonight, the people that you see that you appreciate, the people that you don't see that you appreciate, the people that you want to tell you appreciate them and often don't, because sometimes the time passes and we don't get that chance to let people know we appreciate them. So if you get that chance or opportunity to do it, it's important. So Again, yes, sending tremendous gratitude and appreciation for the people today that helped put out the fires. So from what I heard, nobody was hurt, and everyone's okay. So on that note, I appreciate all of you for showing up, because otherwise I'd be talking to myself, and that's no fun. So thanks for being here. We'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. Right? You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences, most likely. You won't figure anything out. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is it not working? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds. People move, people cough, phones ring, right? This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of that. So posture, you just want to be comfortable. From the cushions, often help slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. Shoulders relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're in the chairs or benches, just sitting up straight as well. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. So start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return to breath. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet. Wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Letting go of expectations. letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddhist awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us in this room, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we respond to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Imagine going an hour without being disturbed by someone. This practice is not easy. Meditation, training the mind to be present, Buddhist practice, it's difficult. Probably the most difficult thing you'll ever do in your entire life. But it's also the most important. Taking care of mental, emotional health, and well-being is the foundation of everything in your entire life. Meditation is free, Buddhist practice is free. But taking care of yourself takes an effort. We often forget. We often have our class to go to, whatever night it is, whatever time it is. Today it's Tuesday at 7. But there's the rest of our day also. And maybe not all of us in this room, but many of us are here. I mean, how do you think I got into this mess to begin with? Many of us are here because we didn't take care of ourselves too well throughout our days. And so we look forward to that thing, whether it's Tuesday at 7, whether it's Wednesday at 4 o'clock, whether it's Saturday morning, whatever it is. We have the things that we look forward to because they're for us, to take care of us. But this practice is recognizing that hopefully you'll see throughout your day that every day is also for you. You know, we talk a lot, I know I talk a lot about the Bodhisattva path and taking care of others and giving to others and working on being less selfish and more selfless. Give, give, give. But at the same time, if you don't take care of yourself first, you got nothing left. So the practice is to figure out how to integrate a level of calmness and quiet and clarity into your already existing day. So it's more of a steady pace. This practice requires patience. Give yourself some time. We're used to learning things and getting better at them and passing a test and moving on and saying what's next. And this practice isn't that at all, which is often why it's, one, so difficult for people, two, one of the reasons people kind of fade away from it a little bit, I think, is because our experience throughout our lives up to this point has been so conditioned to just go through something, study it, learn it, have some knowledge, throw it back out to people, get an approval from it, and move on. This isn't it. That didn't make sense. That's not you know what I mean. Yeah. This practice doesn't work that way. This practice is every day waking up and saying, okay, what more can I learn about myself? About my thoughts, my words, my actions? What more can I learn about taking care of me today? No one's grading you on it. No one's testing you on it. You don't get big awards for anything. It's just, wow, I have this crazy mind every single day that I get to deal with. And it never stops. It's not a 6-day, 6-week, or 60-year course. It is a daily practice. And as long as we're alive, which at this moment, thank God all of us in this room are, right? We have the opportunity to practice. And hopefully we start to figure out, okay, I've started my day. It's whatever time I wake up in the morning. How can I take care of myself right now when I wake up so I don't burn myself out all day long? And then stopping and pausing throughout the day and saying, okay, what can I do at 10 o'clock in the morning, at noon, at 2 o'clock in the morning? What can I do on kind of slow, subtle changes in our day so we don't build up so much stress or anxiety, whatever emotion it is? It's daily maintenance. So keep practicing, keep being patient. And try not to have too many expectations with this practice. It's another thing that I think we fall into this trap of. We have an expectation or an outcome that we're often shooting for, aiming for, trying to reach or achieve. And this practice really isn't about achieving or gaining anything. It's about being in the moment as it is. So if you want to try to achieve something, try to achieve being present with everything. Because if you are present with everything, the concept and notion and idea of trying to achieve anything goes away. If you are present with everything, the concept, notion, idea of trying to achieve anything goes away. So I'll stop there and open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address that relates to your past or your future. Yeah, here and then here.
As you were talking, I said to myself, yeah, check. But then it began to seem to me that right now, my biggest practice has to be generosity. Because I'm pretty aware of where I am. But I have to be generous to realize that the person I'm walking with we're in the general area, but we're not on the same place.
Mhm.
And we're old enough now that that's not going to change. And I'm not so afraid of that as I was at one point. And I'm very grateful for that. But for me, the practice of generosity has become really important.
Yeah. And you're also referring to the generosity you're giving to yourself too, right?
Right, I can't let that go.
Right.
So it's keeping everything in balance, realizing that sometimes I don't. And then I have to get back on track.
Right. Yeah. Did y'all hear that in the back, the first part? Yeah. Yes, generosity at all stages of our lives, but specifically with what you're talking about, as we age and we're aging with others who, having difficulties and challenges, it requires us to give even more. And as we kind of, pour out this seemingly endless cup of generosity, I caution all of us to remember that is not an endless cup. That it is possible to pour out so much generosity that you have nothing left. And then there's clearly nothing more to give. So as we're pouring out generosity, we also have to learn to receive. And it's funny, there's an image of the Buddha, which I didn't learn this until, not a handful of years ago, but an image of the Buddha when you see a statue where he's holding the alms bowl. And there was a monk one time that told me that my understanding of the image of the Buddha with the alms bowl was that it represented generosity, right? Because without the generosity of people giving to the Buddha and his disciples at the time of the Buddha, they wouldn't have lived, right? But it also represents gratitude and appreciation and receiving
Whatever's given.
whatever's given, right? And if that reciprocal relationship doesn't occur, there is no transaction of giving or receiving taking place, and that doesn't work. So practice the generosity, but often also remind yourselves to practice gratitude, appreciation, and actually receiving whatever it is you can receive, because we need that. Yeah.
As I understand it, one of the teachings is cycle of death and rebirth. Does that imply the existence of the soul?
Considering this is only an hour class, I'm going to make this very easy. The Buddha taught that there is no soul. Solve that problem. Maybe not for you, but right? That's the first thing. I mean, that's literally what he taught. That was a huge difference in Hindu teachings and Buddhist teachings. The Buddha was Hindu, Siddhartha Gautama was Hindu, and the Hindu religion, Hindu way of life taught that there was what was called Atman, which was a soul that continued on. I've never studied Hindu teachings at all. I know very surface, just trickled in from Buddhism, right? But that was one main difference that the Buddha said, no, there's not a soul that continues on. There's what's called a laya vijnana, a storehouse consciousness. There's a collection of your karma. Everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do, that gets stored as a consciousness. That consciousness continues on, but that it's not a soul, right? Doesn't mean these teachings are right. I'm just sharing with you what I understand the Buddha to have taught at that time, 500 years before Christ in India. He said, no, it's not a soul. The soul would be like, well, I am Jeff, and my soul as Jeff is going to reincarnate as something else. So that's not at all what was believed when the Buddha taught. The other thing to keep in mind for those who might be brand new to Buddhism, is that at that time, and I say this always, but it's very important to understand, at the time of the Buddha, pretty much everybody believed in the cycle, and this is the first part of your question, in the cycle of rebirth. So to us today, like this idea of rebirth or like, you know, a continuation is odd for most Western people, right? I did this, I think, even on Saturday, right? And I said, how many people, I'll do it again, how many people in this room like fully actually believe in rebirth? You got a couple, right? And a few of them were actually raised in cultures other than this one. And that's predominantly why. Unless later on in life you finally realize, like, yes, I'm all in, right? But for the most part, raised in this culture, this idea of rebirth is weird. We struggle enough with heaven and hell, one life, death, where we go. Like, we don't even know the answer to that. We spend our whole lives trying to figure that out, and then you want to add in this rebirth thing? You're like, wait, I got enough to figure out, right? Just keep in mind at that time, if you went up to somebody on the streets and you said you got one life and then you're going to heaven or hell, they would have thought you were crazy. You go up to the average person today and say you're going to be reborn, they think you're crazy. So Buddha was teaching at a different time, but the soul part's pretty clear. Yeah. And to wrap up that thing, for me personally as a practitioner, if you're going to heaven, you're going to heaven. If you're going to hell, you're going to hell. If I'm going to be reborn as like, you know, in some heavenly realm, if I'm going to be reborn in some, you know, lower realm, you know what determines all of those things I just mentioned? What determines all of that?
How you live now.
How I live now. So the most important message I've learned, and the only thing I ponder other than responding to the questions when it comes up, which is frequent, the only thing I work on as a practitioner is how do I live now? Because if someone's going to judge me when I die and determine where I go, what are they going to look at? What I did. So, and hopefully I'll live long enough to make up for all the other stuff I did. And if I do go to a heaven or a hell, then, you know, I need about another 50 years to catch up. And balance out the scales a little bit. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
I have a comment and a question.
Yes.
So I like what you were saying about taking care of yourself first. Coming from my background, like in the medical field, there's actually like an anatomical basis for that because, you know, when you think about the human body and the heart, you know, you ask the average person, you know, where does the heart pump blood to? People think, oh, the brain, the, you know, organs. But the truth is that the first place the heart pumps blood to is itself. And that just kind of made me think of that.
Interesting. I would have failed that test for sure.
And then my question is, as far as, you know, I think a lot of the practice that you teach that we learn here is about staying present. And I'm kind of wondering like what techniques you have for people that are terrible at that. So for instance, I mean, I can't pull up to a stoplight without checking my phone.
Right.
You know, I'm like, you know, doing, you know, bath time with my son, and I'm thinking about the housework that needs to get done after the bath time. That's a waste of 15 seconds of thought.
Yeah.
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I could use any wisdom you have on that.
Yeah. First wisdom I have on that is, does anyone else in the room have a hard time staying present? Right. So, you know, that doesn't make your life any easier, but I just wanted to clarify that all of us are that way, right? But the question is, okay, so now what, right? Mm-hmm. One great way to not check your phone when you pull up to a red light is throw it in the trunk.
Yeah.
I know then Google Maps won't work. I don't know. I mean, you could Bluetooth it in or something like that. Like, you have to, like, you know, what are they? You got a little baby. What are they like? You childproof things, right?
Sure.
You've childproofed your house, right? There's a railing in front of the stairs. Why?
Childproof it.
Childproof it, right? You need to do that to yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So again, I don't have a specific answer. I don't think. I might get to something eventually, but figure out how you can childproof yourself. I just said this to somebody downstairs. We're all just big kids. And we think just because we reach certain ages in our lives and we have these things that we do all day long that we get this money for, and we talked about this years ago when we first started showing up. We give ourselves these labels and identities. We're still just like 5-year-olds. And we must childproof ourselves. And so if it's a simple matter of the phone, then put it in the trunk. If it's a simple matter of, I don't know if I have one yet for, you know, when you're at bath time or whatever, but, you know, give yourself like a punishment or something like that. Like, if you don't focus on the child when he's in the bath, like terrible things could happen,
Sure. Right.
right? I mean, so childproof yourself. You're smart enough and creative enough, and I'm actually curious to know what you come up with so you can report back on those things. But another not so specific thing, although I guess that can be specific for all of us too in different ways, but it's really a matter of practice. It's like anything else, that any other muscle that we strengthen, anything we train for, if you run a marathon and you've never done one, you're probably not just going to go out tomorrow and run it. You have to build up to it. So just like the mind that wanders a lot, the way we strengthen our ability to stay focused and present is to deepen our meditation practice. So the more often you sit, the more regularly that you sit, the longer periods of time that you sit, helps you continue to train the mind to come back to the present moment, right? My metaphor of tug of war. So you sit in meditation, the mind goes that way. Keep it in the building. I'm thinking about I forgot, what's that? The organ. I almost forgot the name of that thing. So now I'm just thinking about the organ. I'm back to here, right? Now I've gone that way. Now I'm thinking about the blind that's hanging up, and I'm going to come back this way. Now I've gone that way again, and I'm thinking about like the little petals on the bottom of the organ. Now I'm going to come back this way. So in a meditation practice, you can literally train yourself to stay confined to a space and not allow your mind to wander outside anything other than in that vicinity. It's a wonderful practice of like the tug of war coming back to now. And if you practice things like that over and over and over again, and then you're sitting there and your child's in the bath and you're like, okay, I'm thinking about the housework I got to do. Oh, I got to come back because if I don't pay attention to my child could have something very tragic happen. Hi.
Yeah.
Right? But it's a practice. It's a muscle memory using the idea of the mind and the brain being a muscle, right? Wait, is it a muscle?
No.
Okay. I failed that one too.
You're doing it.
Over 2. But it's training it to come back. That makes sense?
Yeah. So it's like you're smart enough to figure out and practice it. Just
Practice meditation every day, longer periods of time, more consistently, more frequently, and you'll get better at bringing the mind back sooner.
Mm-hmm.
You are never going to stop it from wandering. There's housework to do. But recognize the thought of housework and don't start building it in your head, whatever the housework is, right? Recognize the thought of housework and come back. Don't build the garage in your head. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's very helpful.
Yes. Yeah.
One short comment. When dealing with that, like, I started the practice, I looked at things and I was like looking at my phone and going through traffic and other things. And what was very helpful to me is asking myself, is this useful?
Mm-hmm.
Like social media. Social media is great to keep in touch with people, but it's a tool, like a bandsaw. It can be super dangerous in the wrong hands. It can be super helpful in the right hands. It's just knowing how to use that skillfully and mindfully.
Yeah.
But with my question, going through life with the practice, you're kind and nice to everyone and kind to all living creatures. How do we stop from being completely passive and not recognizing the weeds in the garden from the flowers that are there?
Are you kind and nice to everyone?
I try to be.
Go back to the question.
No.
It's a yes or no. See, I was a terrible student, but I guess I get to play teacher role right here. Are you kind and nice to everyone? Because you kind of, in your question, you kind of brush through that part. You're like, well, when I'm kind and nice to everyone and all beings, or however you said it, how do I not be so passive? First, come back to the question. I don't really think you are that passive. Are you actually kind and nice to everyone? And the answer to that is probably no. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you kind and nice to everyone?
All the time?
All the time, yes. There's always one, right? You try to be, right? Like, work with me on this. You're trying to be kind and nice to everyone, and you want to be kind and nice to everyone. And that's a wonderful intention. Buddhist practice starts with the intention of trying and wanting to be kind and nice to everyone. and recognizing that that is extremely hard to do. And we keep coming back to trying and trying and trying. My first teacher said, don't always look for answers, change the way you ask questions. So what I'm suggesting in your question is, what I'm hearing, and I could be wrong, because I'm wrong a lot, but what I'm hearing is, I'm kind of nice to certain people, and I don't want them to step on me, and when do I get to not be kind of nice to them anymore? Because that's usually the problem. Usually people say, I'm so nice to people, and they're stepping on me or taking advantage of me. And when do I stop letting them take advantage of me? That's usually what this kind of topic is about. Maybe I'm wrong. Does that make sense? Because you're probably not concerned with the people that maybe once in a while you're not nice to taking advantage of you, right? It's only the people we know and love. We're trying so hard to be nice and loving and kind and caring to these people, and they just take advantage of us and step on us. And when do I get to stop being taken advantage of? That, I think, is the heart of this question. And the answer is anytime you want. Right? What I'm really hearing is you're almost looking for like approval or acceptance to actually resist and push back to people. And Buddhist practice is not about being the doormat. It's not about being stepped on, right? I always reference Thich Nhat Hanh about being very engaged, right? Looking at social injustice and things in the world that are really just horrific and disgusting and terrible, that need voices, that need pushback, but pushback with compassion, not with anger. So when you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're being stepped on or taken advantage of, you don't need to literally or figuratively or metaphorically or whatever stand there and be punched. You can turn and walk away. It's not like I'm the Buddhist and so you can just treat me like crap. No. And in fact, removing yourself from unhealthy, toxic situations is also very kind and generous because you're stopping somebody from actually treating you that way. Does that make sense? And this can play out on many levels, whether it's family, friends, complete strangers, people we see in the media that we hate, whatever it might be, right? Those people don't need more hatred and more anger, right? The people that we think are doing horrific things don't need more hate thrown at them. They need somebody to actually listen to them. I just had this dialogue with somebody the other day who felt like was getting really angry, right? And was really like, and it was I'm not even gonna, it doesn't matter, but was really trying to convince someone of their view. But was being really rude and nasty about it. Both people call themselves Buddhist, right? And they're both attacking each other over their views. And the person said, well, I'm really like, upset about this. And I said, well, then I think you need to work on your anger first before you start trying to call somebody out on their Buddhist behaviors. Like, that's ridiculous. Don't use the Buddhist card as like some, thing. The Buddha was just a guy. He was just a human. He said certain things. I think what he said was brilliant. And I think if we integrate what he said into our lives, it makes us suffer and others suffer less. But we have to do that. We can't just say, like, the Buddha said this, and then go treat people like crap. It's hard. So look at it from maybe a different lens. We try to be nice to people, and it's not about being stepped on. Yeah. Other questions? Do one more or so before we wrap up. Yeah. Go ahead.
This isn't a question, it's just an add-on to like what we were just talking about, but even if we really are like actually nice to every single person and treated everyone with kindness, like that could be just taken the wrong way from someone based on like maybe something that happened to them or like their views on things. So even if we do try, if we actually are 100% nice to everybody, like what goes around comes around, but also isn't 100% gonna like be like karma and help you out and stuff.
Yeah. We've all been nice to people, and all of a sudden they're like not nice back. just because we're nice to people doesn't mean that they're going to be nice back, right? And the challenge is to continue to practice that kindness towards everyone. And when they're not kind back, that's when we're really challenged. But I'm being so kind to you, and you're being a you-know-what to me. Well, I'm going to continue to try to be kind until I decide to really disengage from that dynamic. But the real challenge is when they don't respond the way we want them to, how then do we continue to come back to them? And anytime people are not kind to us, it's not even about us. Anytime people are not kind to us, it's not about us. It's about them. All you have to do is think about the once in your life that you were unkind to somebody. Remember that one time that you were unkind to someone? I know you got to go way back to childhood. But the one time that you were unkind to someone, it probably had nothing really to do with them. It had to do with you, your frustration, your being upset, your being hurt, your expectation, your judgment. All you were doing was projecting your madness onto somebody. And that's all that people do. Yeah, thanks. One more and then we'll close. Go ahead.
Oh, it's not burning. It was kind of just more of an add-on, because what I heard from his question was more, I think, something I struggle with, which is why I heard it. When do you, in the face of the political things that are going on, when is it that you get up and take a stand? Or also, I struggle with it also with military. I think I'm a pacifist, right? But I can sure fight when I have to. But I have this internal conflict because I have disdain for killing and people who devote their lives to it, and yet I'm eternally grateful that they have.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that. So
Yeah. You got a lot of struggles.
I guess struggle.
Yeah. I don't even know if I want to attempt to sum up the
That's
struggles,
what I'm
but
saying.
yeah. But I do want to make a couple comments on that because I do think that they're important, maybe for you or just for anybody in here. The first thing is to recognize that it's always time to stand up and take a stand on what we think is right. But to do it with kindness, compassion, and understand that just because you think it's right, you mentioned the political climate. I don't talk politics, I don't talk religion, but I'll tell you what, you don't think the political climate is good, but you know how many millions and millions of people think it's phenomenal. So you have to, that's the truth.
Yeah.
This practice is about waking up to the truth, right? That we have our view, that we own it. It's not right. It is only right in your perception. To somebody else's perception, you are completely wrong. Right? That's the first thing. Always stand up, come from compassion, kindness, not bitterness, not angry, not nastiness. That's why Thich Nhat Hanh was so brilliant. That's why Martin Luther King nominated him for Nobel Peace Prize for his work that he did. Right? Standing up and speaking from a place of love. Right? All kinds of great quotes around that, So that's the first thing. The second thing, I've never been in the military. I've worked in that population for probably 12 years now. And I've worked with currently Marine Corps recruits, literally 18 years old, fresh out of high school, 120 of them every Sunday, leading a Buddhist service with them, and they're being trained to be Marines, right? And I've worked with people coming out of combat, coming back with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries, and combat veterans and active military and Navy SEALs and snipers and machine gunners and all of that. You know what all of those people are? Human. Doing the best they can with all of their experiences, just like all of us. And the last thing that I'm ever going to do, I don't think it's right to kill either. But it's not my place to judge anybody else's actions, right? Sure, maybe I could sit here and say I've never killed someone, but you know how many disgusting, horrific, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things I've done?
I've heard a few.
A lot. right? So I personally, as a practitioner, and that's why I'm making this very personal, I don't have a scale that says all the bad things I did are not as bad as what somebody else did. So if I'm going to work through my madness and my journey, I have to appreciate all of these humans. And the other thing I've learned working in that population for so many years, I don't think I've ever met anybody in the military that has ever said to me, I joined the military because I want to kill people. They've all said to me, I joined the military because I want to make the world a better place and a safer place. And I had to learn that lesson years ago. Someone said that to me early on, and that's been this theme that has rung true to this day. And we get a lot, as you know, we get a lot of military folks, active and veterans through here. Smitty with the Japanese Buddhist temple, wonderful friend and veteran herself, and ordained, Japanese Buddhist teacher. We talk about this a lot. So it's that internal struggle, but if I'm pointing out things from another lens that maybe will help with that struggle, not just for you, but for anyone in here who might, have thoughts around that kind of stuff. Sadly enough, I've actually met some Buddhist teachers over the years. I'll close with this thought, who won't teach to the military population. And I just think that's a real heavy judgment to throw on a, I don't even know what you would call it, a group of people. Because I just think that that's really not cool.
It's kind of arrogant.
I think it's extremely arrogant. Yeah, that's what I call Buddhist arrogance. You've heard me, Buddhist arrogance. Like I said, if we all laid out on the table all the things we've done wrong in our lives, probably be a long list, big table. So, all right, we'll join palms as we'll close with the transfer of merit. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering.